Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you are joining for the first time, this is our industry series. As part of this series, what we do is we cover a bunch of stories, and then we are going to be reviewing one of the vendors. We meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern for this specific series. And the pattern in every single session is going to be similar, a couple of stories and a vendor. Today, the vendor that we have is going to be Microsoft. And a lot of you are going to be wondering that, Microsoft is not really an ERP vendor. But when you look at their financial statements, you are going to be shocked how much market share they have in the ERP space, especially in the last 3 to 4 years since the cloud development became prominent. I think they have been getting a lot of market share, and that actually changes the game for the entire ERP industry. And we are going to be talking a lot about that. Just to kick things off, we are going to start with everybody's intro. Andy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Andy Pratico. I've been working in the ERP space for manufacturers since 1981, which, if you add it up, it's 40 years. I've worked all over Canada, all over the United States, and I have a published book on how to uncover the truth about ERP software. Because if any of you ever gone through an evaluation of ERP systems before, you already know how difficult that task is. I think it's the most difficult task any company goes through. Thanks, Sam.
I completely agree. Thank you so much for being here, Andy. Dave, can I move to you next for your intro?
Yeah, happy to. Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Chrysler. I own a company called the Chrysler Club, where we work with business owners and entrepreneurs to help them create the systems needed to get them to make the shift from working in their business to working on their business. And I spent more than 20 years in the manufacturing space, directly in operations, responsible to help out with ERP implementation and onboarding to our corporate systems. So thanks for having me, Sam.
It's always a pleasure to have you every week, Dave. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
Phil, can I move to you for your intro?
Yeah, hi, Sam. Hi, everybody. I'm Phil Kerper, Managing Director of Ringling Business Solutions. We help CEOs and executive leadership teams look at their overall platform of digital technology and align it with their business, particularly in mid-market size companies. My background, I'm just coming off about 20 years with a variety of different companies in the C-suite as a CEO and president. So I'm kind of bringing that CEO perspective to the conversation. I've made a lot of decisions about these softwares and help with the implementations. And today I'm coming from a remote location in Illinois.
Okay, amazing.
Great to be here, Sam.
So much. Thank you so much for being here, Phil. Your experience is always going to be so relevant from the CEO perspective, and your experience implementing the Microsoft products. Obviously, we are going to have tons of exciting stories from there as well. Thank you so much for being here. So we will dig right into the topic, and we are going to start with today's stories. And the first story that we have for today is going to be related to Workday. And as you guys know, Workday is primarily in the service space. Even though you might see Workday being used in conjunction with Plex in a lot of different automotive situations, and sometimes people feel that, Workday is a potential as the manufacturing ERP. But overall, from the corporate strategy perspective, Workday is not trying to penetrate any of the manufacturing ecosystem unless it's oversold or maybe sold only for HCM or global finance capabilities. From the strategic acquisition perspective, they have acquired a CPQ company called Zimit. Okay, this CPQ solution is very unique as well. Okay, it was designed for service-centric companies on service industries, and these are the industries. If you think about it, these are going to be the not-for-profit organizations. These are going to be any of the professional services companies, the accounting firm, the software firm, any of the tech firms. So those are really the service firms. So the CPQ, as you guys know, the service industry, the business model of service industry, and the processes they are going to have from the service industry perspective, they are going to be very different from the product-centric industries, for example, manufacturing, retail, or distribution. So Workday is really trying to position themselves there. So this particular acquisition is going to position them as the ERP offering. So they are really, really strong as the global financial solution. They are really strong in their HR, HCM, the recruiting solution. They are also really strong in the planning and budgeting and the EPM function. Now they are going deeper overall in ruling the service industry. So their competitors are going to be companies like Unit4. I don't know if you guys have heard of them. The other competitors, I would say, they are going to be companies like Financial Force. Those are, some of the companies, they are really, really focused on the service organization. Workday is also very enterprise-centric companies, so it's not really a mid-market solution. There are companies that may have used the Workday solution for mid-market companies as well, but typically they are going to be really, really heavy in the HCM HR function, and the decision process will be driven by the HR people. That's where you are going to see Workday as part of the ERP solution. So here, I don't know if we have anything else with respect to this news, but we'll see how this is going to be used overall in the Workday portfolio. So the news says is Zimit will help Workday provide its service industry customers with a fully automated quote-to-cash offering. And quote-to-cash is the term that is used in the ERP world significantly, especially in the ERP community. Now, Workday as a company was never positioned sort of as the ERP, but as you can read in the news, now they are trying to position more as the ERP solution, at least for the service industry, and they are going to go deeper as they penetrate each industry one at a time. These offerings will help them streamline quote and proposal development and reduce the time to quote from days to minutes. In my opinion, this is the boilerplate pitch for any of the CPQ offering that you are going to see with any of the ERP. When the acquisition is complete, Workday and Zimit will expand on their pre-existing relationship. Zimit will become a Workday-approved integration. By the way, guys, one point to note here is they were already integrated. That's my understanding of this news. They were already integrated, but then they acquired. So they are already going to get that integration. So they don't have to invest time in integrating this. So that's a plus overall that they can start selling right away as the full suite integrated solution. And now this is going to be owned by Workday because of this acquisition. I don't see anything else. If you guys have any comment, please unmute yourself and just mention that. Or I'll
just curious, Sam, have you ever heard of Zimit before?
Zimit, no. This is the first time I heard after Workday acquired. Yeah. Any other comments, guys? Okay, so the next story that we have is going to be related to Infosys. And when we talk about the product offerings from the large OEMs, you are probably not going to talk about the consulting companies. But as we all know that the business models are sort of blurring. Everybody is trying to do pretty much everything. Infosys has had a lot of different products in the market. They have been trying to become a product company for some time from their business model, just because their consulting model is taking a hit at this point of time. So what they have done is they have created an e-commerce solution. Okay, so as you guys know, if you have been in the e-commerce space for any time, e-commerce space is far more crowded than the ERP space. Can you believe this? Okay, there are far more solutions in the e-commerce space. And now they have launched one more solution. Now, this solution, the major claim of this solution is going to be that you can quickly launch microservices. Okay, microservices is the word that you are going to hear a lot in the development community, in the product development community. Okay, what it does is basically it's when the containerization became really hit, when Kubernetes became hit, then everybody sort of wanted to create the thin slices of the services so they can scale quickly. any of the tech companies, whether you are going to talk about Facebook, Google, any major tech houses, they are going to be really, really big in the microservices development. In fact, if you look at any of the legacy platform in the banking airline space, their effort at this point of time is going to be to convert that legacy code base in the slightly more cloud native microservices centric code base. That's what they are spending their time on. So now Infosys is actually trying to productize this. So they are productizing that, okay, I'm actually going to give you an e-commerce platform, but this is going to be far more customizable than any other platforms out there. Now, in my mind, that's a tall claim. Okay. Number one, this platform is really for the enterprise customers. It is not really for the mid-market customers. Okay. In the mid-market, you are going to have your Shopify, Magento, BigCommerces of the world. There are a million other platforms out there, but these are the main ones. But then in the enterprise space, you are going to have companies like Salesforce. Obviously Microsoft has a big play there, and we are going to review that in today's session. And then you are going to have companies like Infor. Infor has a rhythm product. Now, Infosys is actually launching another enterprise product, which is going to be Equinox. Okay, so we are going to see how this product is going to work, but their competition is really going to be more of the Salesforces of the world. And there are hardly 100, 500 companies that you can probably count on your fingers that are going to be right fit for this specific product. So I'll read the news a bit. They are claiming that Infosys Equinox, the company, is expanding its offering to help clients transform their digital commerce efforts with 4 new services. So they have the Equinox Commerce, Equinox Microservices, Equinox Experiences, Equinox Marketing. Okay, obviously experiences is a big deal because experience is going to be aligned with some of the platforms such as Calidus Cloud that SAP acquired. Obviously they have a big edge overall because of Calidus, especially in the enterprise space if you talk about SAP. So obviously this is going to be a big deal, at least in the enterprise space, if they can do whatever they are claiming, at least in the public release and the PR. So here we have some more details that I would love to touch on. So it is saying that it offers commerce as a service to engage with both B2B and B2C shoppers. In the enterprise space, the business models are going to be complex. I don't know any enterprise company, especially in the retail world, that are going to be either purely B2B or B2C. So obviously you need to support both of the business models. The bigger platforms are going to have both of them out of the box. In the mid-market, you are going to have Shopify's of the world, which are targeted more towards B2C, BigCommerce towards B2B. But when you go to enterprise, you pretty much need everything that you need to be able to target or touch any single customer out there. That has 50+% greater speed to market than any other solution when it comes to adding new microservices or adding a new commerce presence. Now, in my mind, microservices is a very technical term. When we talk about, what does it do for the business, I'm going to read this as, let's say if you are launching multiple brands, probably they are going to require tons and tons of microservices. So, if you need those, obviously this platform can help. But again, the description is very technical in my mind. It's probably going to do a lot of boilerplate that other companies may have been spending time, but now this is going to be slightly easier. If you guys have any comment, I can take that. Otherwise, I'll move to the next story. The next story that we have is going to be related to Oracle. This is going to be the results. So we did Oracle last week, and this week they have announced their results. I think the results are fairly consistent with what we had reviewed last time as well. So their SaaS revenue is growing. The Fusion ERP Cloud revenue up 32%, NetSuite ERP Cloud revenue up 28%. I think this was similar to what we had reviewed last time. The other comment that we have in this particular news is going to be really related to the 10 million run rate, and that is going to be 25% of total revenue. And again, I think we are going to discuss this specific issue in our Microsoft presentation as well, that all of these infrastructure companies, and I like to see Oracle as the infrastructure company. I like to see the Microsoft as the infrastructure and consumer-centric company. But now all of these guys are actually trying to penetrate into the ERP market. So that's a very interesting play, the way market is moving. I think there are going to be some changes overall, the way market is structured at this point of time, whether this is going to be in terms of the which company is going to be using whose cloud. We will see all of that. But I'm suspecting that based on the way these guys are growing, if they end up taking market share from the ERP vendors are going to do something to prevent that. Just because in my mind, a lot of the ERP vendors were the direct customers of, for example, companies like Microsoft, companies like Oracle. So now, they are going to be sort of seeing them as the competitor as opposed to the platform provider. So we'll do that as part of the Microsoft presentation. If you guys have any comment on this story, we can take that. Otherwise, we'll move to the next story. Okay, so the next story is very interesting as well. And the reason why I find this interesting is because Salesforce is positioned as one of the leaders, and I think they are the highest overall in terms of leading in the FSM market. And if you are not familiar with the field service management market, typically this was dominated by the ERP vendors traditionally, just like your CRM market. Okay, Salesforce created another category, and now CRM market, if we simply take Salesforce's market share, then we are talking about at least $30 billion. And if you look at the total market size of the CRM market, that's probably going to be 40, 50, maybe $100 billion. I don't know how. I have not seen the actual numbers for the CRM market, but that's probably close. Looking at Salesforce, let's say if they have the 50% market share, being the leader in the CRM category. But the field service category is very interesting as well. Now, so what Salesforce is doing is they are taking one pie at a time. So now they are actually targeting the field service market. Okay, and they have become the leader in this category. They have been the leader for very long, but we saw the acquisition, I think, in the last session called Service Trace. And because of Service Trace, I think they got the more capabilities that they needed to be able to compete with companies like IFS, which is a very prominent ERP vendor. So here, if you actually look at the Magic Quadrant, you have the Salesforce positioned as the leader. Then you have the IFS, and I'm almost shocked that Microsoft is third. Okay, and I think this is going to be overall with respect to the capabilities and the completeness of the vision. I think those are the two quadrants that we have. But Microsoft seems to be behind Salesforce, which is fascinating in my opinion. They were always the leader, sort of in the field service market. Oracle is also behind. We have the ServiceMax, but ServiceMax is actually very tightly aligned with the Salesforce. As you can see here, Salesforce actually combines ServiceMax as part of their portfolio, but they seem to be ahead in the overall offering that they have. And we have the ServiceNow right here, which is again shocking that ServiceNow is so behind. But I mean, that was more of the IT solution. It's not really the field service solution as such. So I would not guess that they are going to be equally positioned in the field service market as well. But overall, if you look at their acquisitions, so Salesforce has been acquiring a lot of companies. Number one, obviously, they are very closely aligned with ServiceMax. I don't know if you guys remember the Velocity acquisition. Velocity was the company. Velocity was Salesforce's VAR. Okay. But what Velocity had done, they had created the industry solutions on top of Salesforce. They had very strong solutions in the telecom space, in the media space, in the communications space, in the energy, in the utility. That's how Salesforce got all these capabilities. And now even Salesforce is trying to position themselves as the industry cloud, which is what everybody is doing, including Microsoft, that we are going to see in today's presentation. So with all of these capabilities, you have ServiceMax, you have Velocity, you have Service Trace. Now, based on all three, they are really a leader in the FSM space. Now, we are going to see how that is going to play out overall in the ERP space with the providers that are really, really strong in these capabilities.
Sam, a quick comment on this one. I mean, this one's fascinating to me. First of all, the strategy of divide and conquer in order to enter into that space just looks really smart. And then to accomplish it and have this come out, I mean, this caused a bunch of meetings. You can be darn sure that this chart caused a lot of meetings on the Microsoft side on what the heck, how did these guys get to this point? And on the Salesforce side of a successful strategy that shows up in this way. So this one looks really smart as a way to kind of enter, like you said, pieces and build the pieces out as they try to become a more full service provider, and including pieces of the ERP space.
Yeah, and honestly speaking, when we are going to go deeper in the Microsoft presentation, a lot of people think that, you know what, Microsoft's probably biggest competitor is Google. Microsoft's biggest competitor is probably SAP. You know what, Microsoft, who is their real competitor? It's going to be Salesforce.com. Can you believe this? Okay, that's what, I mean, they fight publicly about this. If you guys remember the LinkedIn acquisition, there were only two players who were really competing in that. Okay, that was Microsoft and Salesforce. And Salesforce was really, really, really mad, with that acquisition, because they really wanted to get that. So obviously, Microsoft being the number 2 CRM provider, Salesforce being number 1 CRM provider. So Microsoft's focus always is going to be the CRM market. ERP is going to be slightly more afterthought. So that's going to be very interesting from the strategy perspective. Do you guys have any other comments?
Just the one that Oracle's in the top of that right-hand quadrant. Is that Oracle Fusion, or is that NetSuite, or is that, it doesn't really say?
So yeah, the Magic Quadrant does not say that. I think they are going to review the strongest solution they are going to have in the field service space. So this is going to be the composable module, and I'm going to use the Gartner's term here. They used composability last time for their ERP. So when you look at the enterprise space, composable field service module is going to be the one that is going to be positioned in this Magic Quadrant, and obviously that is going to be part of the Fusion umbrella. All right, guys. By the way, I mean, see, one of the things that was not clear in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, I think this is for the enterprise play. It is not really for the mid-market, even though they are not extremely clear about this. Salesforce is really trying to eye the enterprise market, especially the industries that are going to be slightly more non-ERP centric, and those are going to be any of the solar industries, the utility industries, your media, telecom, insurance, health. All of these industries are really non-ERP industries. And in fact, I mean, see, we are going to review Microsoft's offering as well. Microsoft is not crystal clear in terms of the industries that they really like to target, but they also like to target non-ERP industries, because that's where they have the real Azure play, to be honest. That's what they like to sell, as opposed to the ERP, because ERP does not make them as many dollars as the platform play does. So we are going to review all of that from the Microsoft perspective. Okay, any other comments, guys? All right, so let's jump, to the Microsoft. So here, we have taken out, now let's revisit our thought process in terms of, how we like to review these things. So number one preference that we are always going to have is really going to be the financial statements. Number two is going to be the marketing strategy from their website, from their overall positioning in the public releases, that the way they may have communicated. The third is going to be really their product offerings. So in this particular case, Microsoft is the public company. So obviously we have, the financial statements released, and we can review those. One of the things that I could notice the difference between the Microsoft, the financial statements versus the Oracle financial statements, in my mind, these two companies are fairly comparable. So one of the things, if you actually review, Oracle does not like to be very verbose in their financial statements. You are not going to find a lot of words. It's very concise. It's all numbers, no interpretation. But in case of Microsoft likes to be slightly more expressive. For example, they have very clearly mentioned where the competition is coming from. Okay, if you look at each of the segments and each of the product offerings, you are going to see the competitors, their strategy. You are going to see financial risks that Microsoft is perceiving. They are also very crystal clear about how they want their company to be positioned. And one of the things that you are going to notice in their financial statement is going to be they like to be very platform centric. They like to create ecosystems. Okay, not every company out there, ERP company out there, operates with the same mindset, to be honest. Microsoft was one of the first companies that created the kind of ecosystem play, the platform play that nobody can match in the industry, in the enterprise software or in the personal software space. Okay, Microsoft was that, and that's probably the reason why they have the largest channel. They have roughly 600,000, the VARs, the SIs, that sell their product. Obviously, they are going to have far more resellers, and the reason for that is because some of these resellers are selling applications like Microsoft Word, Microsoft Office. Now, if you really think about it, selling Microsoft Word and selling an ERP, it's a different deal altogether. Okay, so the partners that might be able to sell Microsoft Word, they are probably not qualified to sell an ERP. Okay, so that's why you have a lot more partners competing for Microsoft market share, but they will probably not get as much attention in the other ERP ecosystem. So that's the overall strategy. The way their distribution strategy and the licensing strategy is done. Okay, if you pay attention to the details, they are going to have, let's say, the volume licensing agreement. You are going to see things like OEM licensing agreements. They want to create platform play. That's the bottom line. They want to make sure that their wards, their partners are winning. The other things that you are going to notice in their financial statements is going to be is they operate with the consumer mindset, the way the consumer centric companies operate. For example, let's say if you are looking at a company that is going to sell Microsoft Word, one of the things that you are going to notice is it's going to be very card centric approach. And the way I like to define card centric approach is you are going to see the price of Microsoft Dynamics on their site. Okay, so each of the bundle that you want, they are going to say, you know what, this is $259 per user per month, this is that. But and the other thing that you are going to notice from the consumer perspective is, and Microsoft is the only ERP provider that does not offer dual support. Okay, so when I say dual support, what I mean is, if you look at companies like Infor, companies like your Oracle, SAP, all of them are going to have the OEM support. Microsoft does not have that. So when you are working with the partner, if you're lucky, if you find really, really good partner, then you are going to have really good time. Okay, but if you find really bad partner, and the more common ones in the Microsoft ecosystem are going to be the bad ones. And the reason for that is because they were never qualified to sell ERP. They grew by selling the technical systems. ERP, number one, is not consumer system. Number two, it is not it's not like selling Microsoft Teams. It's a very different software. And that is probably the reason, if you look at the Microsoft Teams, Microsoft does offer the support for Microsoft Teams, but it never touches the Dynamics portfolio. Okay, if you want any support, you have to go to a partner for your sales, for consulting, for anything. Microsoft will never touch that. If they are going to touch, then obviously that's going to go to a partner as well. It may be a white labeled partner, but Microsoft does not want to maintain the consulting competency, which is unlike any other ERP vendors in the market. The other things you are going to notice in the Microsoft ecosystem is Microsoft is the only vendor in the market that does not really have the certified. You are going to find certification. I mean, every company has the certification, but is every partner compliant with that? Probably not, because anybody can go there and ask for the Microsoft partnership. Literally anybody, even if you don't have ERP word printed on your resume, and you can go to these distributors and you can buy a license just like the way you buy Microsoft Word. Now think about that, guys. You are buying an ERP. You are not buying Microsoft Word or Microsoft Teams. Those are completely different software. So this is overall from the mindset perspective how Microsoft likes to operate. Now let's review their financial statements and overall how the financial statements are structured. So here, if you read their financial statements, they are saying that Dynamics provides cloud-based and on-premises business solutions for financial management, and we have taken just the ERP centric conversations from the financial statements. If you actually look at the Microsoft site, or if you look at their financial statements, it's going to be really hard to spot anything related to ERP, because that is such a humongous company. Microsoft is an ocean, okay, in terms of offering. So finding anything related to ERP, even on their site, is extremely difficult. And even Microsoft does not care for that. Microsoft want to sell everything, whatever they can sell. But if you look at other ERP companies, for them, ERP is really going to be bread and butter. So they really want to position ERP as their flagship product. So here we have taken some of these snapshots from the financial statements. Here, we have this is the product that is positioned for the financial management, enterprise resource planning, CRM, supply chain management, other applications. Here, two things that you are going to notice is going to be their competitors. So in the Dynamics portfolio, their competition is listed as Oracle, Salesforce.com, SAP. Now, pay attention to this, guys. Oracle and SAP are the competitors because this is the enterprise market. Okay, Microsoft only wants to focus on large deals. They don't necessarily care for the SMB, to be honest, from the corporate strategy perspective. Okay, Salesforce.com is listed as the competitor because of their CRM and the field service management. Okay, and now Salesforce, every single deal that you are going to see where Salesforce is going to be present, I can almost guarantee that Microsoft is probably going to be present in those deals. So obviously, and that's probably the reason why there was a big heat between these two companies, Salesforce and Microsoft, when they were trying to acquire LinkedIn. The other thing that you need to pay attention is going to be the acquisition strategy that Microsoft has. If you look at the companies that they have acquired recently, obviously GitHub was the big acquisition. The reason why they acquired that is because of the developer ecosystem. The other reason why they acquired that is because of the platform play. Even LinkedIn they acquired because of the platform play. So they want to acquire the companies that help them create these ecosystems. And those are the companies they are going after. They are not acquiring any of the companies that are going to make them better ERP company. That's not the acquisition strategy that they are following at this point of time. Here, competitors to Office, and these are really the Office competitors. So we can probably skip that. Obviously, Microsoft faces competition pretty much from everybody in the market. But the major competition is going to be from the technical companies as opposed to the ERP companies. Now, let's move to the next slide. If you guys have any comment, I can take some quick ones. Now, we are actually going to review their financial statements for 2021. If you pay attention to this one, the commercial cloud revenue increased 34%, okay, to $69 billion, guys. $69 billion, okay? The commercial cloud, and we have the definition of commercial cloud, but this is going to be, so the way Microsoft likes to segment their market is, hey, I have my personal computing market, and then I have my commercial market. So anything related to Windows, Microsoft Office, that is sold directly to the consumers, that is going to be slightly more personal computing or the consumer market. The other market is going to be your commercial market. Now here, this is only cloud, guys, by the way. Okay, and this also includes Azure. It's not just the Dynamics portfolio, it's not ERP. So it's the commercial cloud, okay? So that is $69 billion. If you think about it, Oracle is saying that, what, I have got my SaaS and infrastructure as a service to $10 billion run rate. Microsoft has always been 5 times of SAP, Oracle. Microsoft is that big, guys, okay? Even in the cloud market share, they are 5 times of these companies. The Office commercial products and cloud services revenue increased 13%, driven by Office 365 is obviously winning a lot, to be honest. Growth of 22%. The Office consumer products, so this is really the personalized computing market. By the way, LinkedIn is actually experiencing a lot of growth just because the LinkedIn and the CRM, they go hand in hand, and that's a huge play for Microsoft. The Dynamics products and cloud services revenue increased 25%, driven by Dynamics 365 growth of 43%. Okay, but if you look at the Azure growth, Azure is different. Azure is the infrastructure. Okay, obviously, when anybody is going to buy Dynamics, that is going to drive the Azure growth. But overall, the Azure growth is far higher. That's what we saw in Oracle statement as well. It is consistent with that, right? So the Azure growth is roughly 50%, and this is 43%. We are going to see some more segmentation in terms of where they are winning, whether they are winning in the Dynamics or in the Azure cloud market. But if you look at the segmentation here, productivity and business processes. So this is where your the business process apps are going to be, and that's the market that is $53 billion in 2021. It has grown from $46 billion. So we have roughly what 13 or maybe less than that, 16% growth, right? 16% growth for this market. And then we have the intelligent cloud. The intelligent cloud is going to be your cloud offering. That's going to be your Azure play. And then you have the personal computing market is not growing as much as the other market. That's why it is really focused for them. Okay, so we are going to see some more insights here overall with respect to regional segmentation. We saw in case of Oracle that they were not growing as much as in North America, at least for some past couple of months. I think recently they started growing again. But if you look at the 9 months, I think they did not grow in North America. But Microsoft is really growing in North America as well, as they are growing in the other countries. Here, one of the things that you may want to notice, and I am actually not able to hide this. Let me hide this. Okay. So here, one of the things that you may want to notice is our commercial cloud revenue, which includes Azure, Office 365 commercial, the commercial portion of LinkedIn, Dynamics 365. So commercial cloud has everything, okay, in it that is going to be focused on your commercial bundle. That includes your LinkedIn part as well, LinkedIn and the Microsoft 365 too, as long as they are being sold in the commercial setting, which is what is 70 billion. 69.1 is the most accurate figure. That has grown from 38 billion, guys, in 2020. So now this is a significant market share overall in the commercial space. And this is my concern overall from the market perspective. If you look at the 90% of the ERP market, that is probably deployed on Azure. Okay. Now, if Microsoft tries to win against every single customer, then I don't know what those ERP vendors are going to do. So there is a little bit of, I don't know if there is going to be a backlash from the ERP vendors, but Microsoft is supposed to be creating the platform. They are supposed to be helping their customers, and their customers are going to be companies like Epicors of the world, whoever is deployed on the Microsoft. So this is a very interesting thing, how they play out overall.
Yeah, Sam, excuse me. I'm glad you highlighted the bottom comment. I thought that was an amazing three numbers, 38 to 69 billion in 3 years. Amazing.
Yeah. So there is going to be some changes in the market. I'm telling you guys. I mean, see, if they keep winning in the ERP market, then what is the other folks going to do? I mean, they either have to move to some other cloud providers, or they have to do something to make sure that they are winning as well. But obviously, this includes the cloud portion too. So let's say if Epicor is going to win, they are going to be deployed on Azure, and Microsoft wins. Whoever wins, Microsoft is going to win. Okay, guys. If Epicor wins or Microsoft wins, Microsoft is always going to win. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. Here, if you look at from their product offering perspective, guys, it was really, really crowded overall from the marketing perspective. They just have one menu for Microsoft 365. Overall, it was very hard to find how to find the ERP offerings, in the big umbrella of Microsoft. So that's the marketing strategy, as you can see on their menus. Now, I'm actually going to move to the next slide. If you look at their products, one of the things that they are going to notice is 90% of the space is actually occupied by their enterprise product. Business Central is located as the separate product, even though that's a fairly prominent product. Okay, and you are not going to see any of the NAVs, the GPs, the AXS, SLs of the world. Obviously, Microsoft has a lot of different products, but you are not going to see any of that anymore in the meeting because Microsoft does not want to actively sell any of those. The support might be pulled from those products at any point of time when Microsoft decides, because obviously they don't want to invest money in those products. It's really expensive for them. Okay, some of the partners may be selling those products. Microsoft does not want to actively commercialize those. In fact, the way their incentives are created, they want to promote a lot more cloud because that's what Wall Street wants, as we all know.
Why isn't finance and operations on that list?
So finance and operations is everything that is not Business Central here, to be honest. That's how finance. So Business Central is a completely different product. A lot of people are going to be confused that, you know what, I'm buying Business Central, I'm going to Microsoft. If I go to my Business Central tomorrow, let's say if I want to switch to F&O, no. That's not how it's going to work. Okay, it's a completely different product, guys. It's a completely different. In fact, if you want to buy some of the add-ons from your Microsoft F&O and you want to use them as part of your Business Central, doesn't work. License does not support, guys. Okay, so please understand that. Tomorrow, let's say if you want to move from your NAV to your Business Central, doesn't work because Microsoft does not provide that out of the box. So you need to really understand this more from the product perspective, where the boundaries are. By the way, the Business Central, and you are going to see this in some of the later slides, Business Central does work with their core CRM solution because they want to push as much CRM as possible. Their go-to-market strategy is push CRM, and then if companies buy Business Central, great. If they don't, that's okay as well. But push CRM, field service first. That's what Microsoft wants.
Doesn't Business Central have a CRM built in?
It does, but the CRM is far more than the CRM component of an ERP, to be honest. Especially if you look at the companies that are going to be super heavy in the pre-sales process marketing processes, right? So you require far more sophisticated CRM component than what your ERP can support. So the CRM that is going to be provided by your Business Central is going to be similar to Acumatica, NetSuite, but that's not the full-fledged, fully baked CRM product that you are going to get from your Salesforces of the world. So that's why Microsoft likes to say that, you know what, if you want to use Business Central CRM, then use that, or you can use the Microsoft Dynamic CRM, which is for bigger product. One of the things that you are going to notice, these products are integrated out of the box. Okay, you have the common data model supported, and by the way, this is what we saw in case of Oracle. I think Infor has the common data model. SAP is trying to create common data model. In fact, between Microsoft and SAP and Adobe, right? So they are trying to create that as well. So when you are going to use Microsoft products, the MDM strategy is not going to be as hard to implement because the common data model is supported out of the box. So if you are going to utilize any of the products from Microsoft, they are going to be slightly easier if you are using complete stack from Microsoft. And that's exactly what Microsoft wants. Microsoft wants you to use as many Microsoft products as possible. Okay, so that's why they are creating the strategy along those lines. But let's say if you have to use non-Microsoft products, they are not going to be as friendly as you would guess. Now, okay, let's move to the next slide. Here, if you actually look at their industry presence is very confusing. I was actually trying to find if they have any specific presence in any specific industries. I could not find. In fact, even Microsoft, has the same alphabetical order that we saw in case of Epicor. So again, in case of Microsoft, I can give them benefit of doubt because they are just too big and they don't have to care about the sort of the marketing. They don't have to create their industries in the order of their market share. But they seem to be doing, as I mentioned, the industries that are going to be really go-to industries for Microsoft is going to be the non-ERP industries. and that is going to be your financial services, that is going to be government, that is going to be healthcare, that is going to be your media and entertainment. Obviously, they are really strong in retail, but the reason why they are strong in retail is because of their enterprise product, which is really strong. Their enterprise retail product is really strong, that works out of the box with your Dynamics F&O, so which is a huge advantage if you are going for the finance and operations product. Telecom obviously is big as well. So any of the industries that are going to be slightly more development centric, custom development centric, they are going to be really good fit for Microsoft because their products are really developer friendly. Okay, they are designed to be really developer friendly, which is good and bad. In case of ERP, it is really bad. Okay, the reason for that is because those developers are going to kill the hell out of the system, and then you don't really know what is happening inside the ERP. The reason why you buy ERP is because that is the product that has been tested 10,000 times, so that you don't have to rely on the 60% of the code that has not been tested 10,000 times. But let's say if you are in an industry where you have to develop 60% of the functionality on top of the existing product, Microsoft is a way to go because they are really developer friendly. Okay. If you look at their manufacturing, we like to talk about this. Obviously, they have a lot of different products positioned in case of manufacturing. You are going to see Microsoft Teams. You are going to see Azure. Azure is mentioned because they have really strong IoT presence. They are investing a lot of money overall in their presence in the IoT space. In fact, the whole Industry 4.0 community is really excited about what Azure is doing, and this is the only edge compliant, and at least as per their financial statement, they are saying that we are the only edge compliant cloud, which is a big deal, guys. Okay, I have not seen that statement from anybody else in the market, but Microsoft is claiming that, so obviously that's a big deal. But when you talk about the ERP play, it's still very tricky. So when you talk about the Microsoft Power Platform, it's great, but if you actually pay attention to the details, you are going to get, it's almost like mobile app, and the more apps you use, the more dollars you pay. That's how Microsoft wants to operate. They have really unbundled their complete offerings, and they want you to pay for every single bundle that you are going to utilize. In fact, we are actually going to look at the Power Automate platform, the kind of apps that you have supported as part of a standard. None of them are going to be useful for the ERP community. We are going to pay attention to that. One of the other things that I would like to highlight here is the HoloLens 2 offering. That's really good, to be honest, especially when we look at the AR, VR scenario, artificial reality, virtual reality. Microsoft is investing a lot in that. So this is going to be a really interesting play. But again, I have not seen that from any other ERP vendors so far. So they are really trying to be ahead overall in the Industry 4.0 community. I'm actually going to move to the next slide. This is the the slide I was talking about from the Power Automate perspective. If you look at any of the connectors, so typically in the ERP scenario, your needs are going to be able to integrate with Amazon, to be able to integrate with your retailers, distributors, maybe what else? Your PLM probably. You are not going to see any of those apps as part of the standard connectors. Okay, you gotta pay for those if you want to use the Power Automate platform. So guys, my problem always with these tools is, if my costs are going to be unpredictable, why am I buying ERP? The reason why I'm buying an ERP is because I want to contain my costs. I want to have predictable costs. So this is where the variability is, and which is what I personally don't like, about the Power Automate platform, even though it might be as powerful as some of the other iPaaS platform, such as your MuleSofts of the world, or Jitterbit or any other Dell Boomi. It's not as robust, based on the capabilities. Some people are going to claim that it's equally robust, but at least from my experience, that's not the case. This is the industries that I found in the Dynamics umbrella. I don't know if this is done for purpose or it's just the random selection, but they had only 4 industries pointed here, which is the healthcare, financial services, retail, and manufacturing, which is interesting in my opinion. I don't know why they don't have the other industries here. I don't know if this is really because of the market share or something else. This is the support slide that we saw in case of Epicor as well. This is where you are going to find all of those legacy products. There's no clear roadmap for any of these products. I could not find any strategy related to these products anywhere, to be honest, in the public documentation. So what is going to be the future of these products? Nobody knows. We have these are the nuances from the license perspective. So as I had mentioned, that if you are trying to utilize the Business Central has two different versions. Excuse me. It's going to have Essentials and Premium. So Essential is going to be really the retail distribution centric version. Premium is where you are actually going to get the manufacturing function. Now, you guys are going to wonder, if these are really apps, then I should be able to get whatever I want. That's not true, guys. Okay. So for Business Central, the only thing you can really combine is going to be your customer service. You can combine your Sales Pro, which is nothing but your CRM and your FSM solution. So you can combine those two. These are going to have the enterprise capabilities. But other than that, you are still going to be on the small to medium size solution. These are the finance and operation. You can mix and match as you like. One of the things that I really like about this one is HR, which is consistent with Sage's offerings. This HR is really going to be a very global solution that is going to come integrated with your offering. But this was consistent with Oracle as well. They are providing the HR bundle as part of your enterprise offering. Any comments, guys? Okay, so here we have some of the feature sets for the Essentials and Premium. So here, if you actually look at the feature set, it's really targeted for the smaller businesses that are going to be slightly more your either distribution centric, retail centric, light manufacturing in case of the Premium version that we are going to see in the next slide. The warehouse inventory is going to be very strong because this is designed for the distribution and retail centric business, the way the product is architected. And this is where they are highlighting this, that you can get the sales professional and the field service professional as part of the offering, but you cannot get anything other than that from the finance and operations. This is their Premium version. So in case of Premium version, we are going to get some light manufacturing. They have defined it as agile manufacturing, the basic capacity planning. Now, we don't even know what basic capacity planning means, but in my experience, it's going to be fairly lean. If you require sophisticated manufacturing capabilities, that is going to be part of the add-on, and typically that is going to be provided by the VAR, and you might even not know that, because the VARs are the only people who are interacting with you. You are not even interacting with Microsoft, so sometimes you don't know what are you buying. Are you buying really the Microsoft product, or Microsoft plus 60% custom development from a value-added reseller? And in my opinion, I think that's a huge risk overall in the Business Central community. Okay, so there are a couple of comments from the user community. Obviously, they have highlighted that you are not going to get configurator. If you want that, obviously, you have to buy separately. But even if we can ignore the configurator, it does not have a lot more other manufacturing features too. One of the user, and this is the consistent theme that I saw in reviews, that anytime they have tried to implement in case of manufacturing, either they had to do a lot of custom development, or the custom development did not work for them, or it was really slow because of that custom development. Because anytime you are going to actually do the custom development, I don't know how compliant that is going to be with the Microsoft development standards. Obviously, your developers are not going to be as qualified as the Microsoft developers. So sometimes that could have significant impact on the performance that I have seen personally in a lot of different Microsoft BC implementations. Slowness is very consistent overall, which sort of fascinates me, because Microsoft is the platform provider, and other softwares are really running on Microsoft. So how is Microsoft slow? Now this goes back to the product design, how the product is designed, and sometimes it is going to be the reseller or the consultant who is actually working on that product. If they are going to program the hell out of the system, it's obviously going to be slow, but then your business central is probably going to be blamed for that. So obviously, one of the conclusions that we can draw from the business central is going to be the business central is really designed for the smaller companies, I would say, that there are going to be the distribution or the smaller retail organizations. They are not really designed for very complex manufacturing organizations unless you want to do significant custom development, or if you are in the industry where you require significant custom development because your existing ERP cannot support that out of the box. For those industries, the Microsoft NAV is going to be good fit. But if you look at mid-market manufacturing companies, I'm not too sure if Microsoft Dynamics is going to be a good fit unless you are going for the global capabilities of NAV, because they have one of the strongest global financial capabilities. They are going to have one of the strongest localization in a lot of countries. So obviously Microsoft is trying to target the bigger accounts. So if you are trying to find a global solution, obviously NAV is going to be great. But are you going to have as much functional capabilities from your operations perspective? Probably not. So now the next option could be you can go to F&O. Obviously, F&O is a beautiful product. It competes directly with S/4HANA. It competes directly with your Oracle Fusion. Any of the enterprise products, it can probably compete. But the challenge that you are going to get, especially if you are a mid-market manufacturer, okay, obviously the enterprise are going to have, let's say when you look at their sales orders are going to be very complex. They are going to have 10,000 fields that they need to capture on the sales order, because that's how complex their businesses are. Maybe they have a very complex planning, they have very complex product offerings, and that's why they need to capture all of those fields. So now this product is designed from that mindset. Now, if you as the mid-market manufacturer, where on the sales order you care for 5, 10, 15, 20 fields, then it's just going to feel overkill, to be honest, because this is just a too big product. Now, what you could do is a lot of VARs are going to claim that, I can remove all of those fields. Okay, I can take care of that because your Microsoft Dynamics is super development friendly. Yes, but imagine how much custom development you are going to require to disable all of that, to customize, and then finally the technical debt that you are going to create because of this customization. This product is amazing if you are the enterprise company, but if you are, let's say, the small to medium size manufacturer, I'm not too sure. So that's it for from the presentation perspective. Guys, now I can take your comments, discussion.
Well, let me say a few things, Sam, because I was just involved the last couple of years on an evaluation of these two Microsoft products for a mid-market company that was growing very quickly. And I think you really hit a couple key points.
What size were they, Phil?
The company was it was coming up on 100.
Okay.
And it had a lot of growth, and we were at a Sage legacy system, and it was going to be a major lift in order to take that all the way to their current system as a full implementation. I think you hit a couple really key points. And the first of all is the Business Central was too small and the F&O was too big. So there really was nothing just right. There was Goldilocks didn't exist in this decision. And the other thing is the draw of the common database and the draw of how well, because we were a 365 house, how well this system was going to work with all the other things we were doing. We were on Outlook. So, I mean, what you could do between the ERP and quoting stuff and the email systems was just spectacular. It was just really great stuff. So we ended up going with F&O. And I think what really made it a successful project was another point you made, Sam, is we found a really good SI. Because the SI was able to, first of all, help us maneuver enough customization without being too much. So we were able to, I think, make good decisions so it didn't turn into a Frankenstein. And things like the fields, there actually was pretty good workarounds to getting the user interface so that it didn't look so unwieldy. But a final point is, it's still, when you're training your people, if you go to the F&O solution, which gives you everything, that your world is your oyster with that platform, you really got to take the time to get your people used to it, because they're looking at a lot of ways to go at different information. There's a lot of different paths. There's a lot of different information. It takes a lot of excellent planning and training to get people comfortable with the system. On the back end of it, everybody loved it because the capabilities were fabulous, but the training lift was real. And we were very fortunate to have an excellent SI, one of the guys who could look at both of those and who really was a top Microsoft reseller.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that is going to be one of the challenge in finding the right SI in Microsoft ecosystem. Just because it's crowded, it's extremely hard to find.
Yeah, not just with FO, but F&O, but Business Central, same thing. If you don't get a good SI, you're going to have a lot of challenges. You're going to be reliant on your own internal expertise, which most companies don't have. We talked about the differences of F&O and Business Central previously, and obviously F&O is an amazing system if you have the internal expertise to manage that. Business Central is targeted at the smaller companies. However, whenever you get into those outlying functionality capabilities, like Sam was saying, advanced manufacturing capabilities, you're bringing in what they call ISVs, which is independent software vendors, who may or may not have a relationship with the SI you're dealing with. So if they don't, then you're talking about getting support from somebody else. The screens could look different. I mean, there are certification programs Microsoft has, but the downside of the certification programs is that 60% of the revenue goes to Microsoft. So a lot of companies don't want to be certified for that reason. But the whole point is, Business Central has a very wide market share and doing a great job. But realize when it gets outside of the core competency of the product and you have to bring in ISVs or third-party add-ons, make sure that this SI you're dealing with has expertise with that product, right? Because if you're having to deal with 2, 3, 4, 5 companies, you're only asking for problems. Thanks.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you guys are saying. One of the, I guess, 2 takeaways for me really out of this conversation. Kind of the first one, it was interesting, Sam, to get your kind of insights and the perspective of how Microsoft is, as compared to some of the other companies we've already started to review, how they're really positioning themselves. That for me personally was an interesting thing to see. I had not dug into that previously. And kind of, Phil and Andy, to tack onto what you guys are really saying here, I think we've touched on this almost every show that we've done, but I just continually get reminded about asking the right questions, right? And I just kind of jotted a couple of notes down, really understanding what exactly it is you're buying. What are the components that come with, what are the components that you're going to have to rely on somebody else to either program or to support you with. And, Sam, you brought it up previously. It didn't really come up in this conversation. But again, I think it's important when you're starting to talk about integrating all of these different partners and people potentially from a support standpoint, but who is owning that code? How is it going to be supported in the future? How is the training going to be rolled out? Phil, I mean, that's an excellent insight, kind of real world for the situation you guys were dealing with. I know, again, different system that I had some experience with, but I lived through, from an operational standpoint, seeing some of that customization and seeing the training difficulties, seeing the consistency difficulties that come along with all of that. So again, I just felt like it's important to touch on those things from the macro, really understanding exactly what is involved and what partners are going to be brought in and at what points, and how all of that's going to come together. And if you don't have a real clear map of that, you could really be in big trouble very quickly and struggling with a pretty significant investment on your hands and not a system that you really enjoy utilizing.
Well, one final comment, David, on training, because that's such an important piece of this. The timing of training is challenging on these because, you're on the back end of development, approaching maybe months away from go live. You got sandboxes, people are playing, but it's not till relatively late in the process that you get full point to point, and that you can actually run everything through the entire system and really do deep training. And if you're doing, a lot of people do a go live at the end of the year, and that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But if you're doing your go live at your fiscal end, you're saying, okay, that's a great cutoff. Guys, everybody's on holiday for 30 days before you're going live with your product line. And just keep that one in mind, because that can really make it challenging.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, the one point I would add to that, Phil, is, I used to say when we were doing an implementation, I used to say, to the group that we were bringing onto the system, it's like, look, once we actually go live, and to your point, you can play in the sandbox, you can run through scenarios, but once you go live, you're going to figure out things about the system, about the implementation that, more than likely we're going to want to go back and change, because you can only plan so much from a training perspective in terms of what really happens and how orders flow, and the closeout process, all of the different minutia that goes along with a system this complex. So glad you brought that up, because I've gone through that, and I used to say, boy, wouldn't it be great if we could have a real live simulator where we had a full implementation, learned, and then kind of came back and revised, because I feel like that's the best way to understand all the functionality of the system, all of what you've missed during the rollout and the training, and because there's just so much to go through with these systems. So
And I love sandboxes. It's better than running dual systems after go live. All right, it is a better world, but it still requires, like you say, David, you got to have the energy and the time at go live, first of all, to fix that 5% of the OSs that happen, and then actually have the energy in the team to go back and optimize and train and make sure everybody's comfortable with what's going on, and having those internal champions that are really can help you with that, so that those couple months after go live you can optimize and have everybody with a smiley face, instead of saying, okay, it's working, but.
Yeah, totally agree. The last point I would make, just something you touched on in terms of running dual systems. My experience with running dual systems at really any given point is what typically happens, especially with a seasoned workforce and leadership team, is that the new system often morphs into the old system. And so I like there to be a really clean cutoff. I like there to be a lot of discussions. That's the, implementation and discovery is the time to rethink about the processes that are being handled internally and with that tool, and how you can potentially introduce some change to that instead of recreating what you already have, because typically it's going to be a legacy system that doesn't have the same features and benefits. And so you're really investing in something from an infrastructure perspective, that's going to catapult you to new. But if you're just trying to recreate the wheel that you already have, in some sense, kind of what's the point?
Hey guys, so we can take some more short comments, and after that we need to close. We are at roughly 6:40 point. I don't know if anybody has any short comments.
Well, I just wanted to add on to what Phil and David just talked about, and there's two big elements when you're purchasing an ERP. Number one is how to evaluate it, and the other one is how to implement it. And they're both incredibly complex and incredibly confusing, and mistakes are all over the place. The biggest key or biggest piece of advice I can give anybody about the implementation is realize that buying an ERP software is really a business change management strategy. You're not just getting training and learning how to use new functionality. It's changing your entire business. And what I always recommend, and I've heard it many, many other times, is that 2/3 of your decision should be on the expertise of the SI you're dealing with, and 1/3 should be on the software.
That's really a smart comment. And just to quickly back up David of you doing a dual system. I mean, it's not practical if you're making a true change in your business. Hard examples. All right. We had an old system that was not using multi-layer bills. And the new system was all about multi-layer bills and having the service provider being part of the bill of material and part of the tracking of the value, not to mention the actual shop floor reporting and the scanning capabilities. Well, those didn't exist in the old system. There was no point in trying to having those two things go together. You had to pull the Band-Aid and you had to move to the new world.
Yeah, guys. So now we are going to close my personal takeaway overall, or the message that I want anybody to take, especially when you look at developer-friendly ERP systems. I'm all in for development, to be honest. Okay, but one thing you need to take a note of: you can hire an intern who can hack Microsoft Dynamics or Microsoft ERP system, but they are not going to know the business rules, the accounting principles, the way the business works. I have seen crazy scenarios where invoice is created before your sales order. I have also seen crazy scenarios where from the e-commerce system, the shipment object is saved as the sales order inside the ERP. Guys, do yourself a favor, okay? ERP systems, buy as package if possible. Try to utilize it as a product because it captures the business practices from 1,000 years. It is built by people who understand business deep and deep out. Align your business to the ERP as opposed to going other ways, especially asking intern to run your business. That's not cool. On that note, I really want to thank you for your time, guys. This has been a fascinating conversation. If you are joining for the first time, we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We pick just one vendor and review them, and we cover industry stories. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week as well. On that note, I really want to thank you for your time and insights, guys.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Sam.